You know, the concept of chest voice, head voice, even though it's so ubiquitous, even though everybody uses it and people have been using it for hundreds of years, it still has an inherent problem with it, this notion of chest voice, head voice. In other words, thinking about singing in terms of chest voice, head voice has two fundamental problems with it. The first problem is it tends to make students of singing think about singing higher frequencies in a context or a perception of up, down, low, high. And we don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want to maintain this primitive, very primitive notion of hitting high notes, or when you need to sing a high note, that it's high, up, down, low, high. The XY geography of vocal technique intercept graph in your copy of the Four Pillars of Singing is another visual tool. It's a visual metaphor that is making that point. One of the things that graph is trying to say to you is stop viewing higher frequencies in your singing as only up, down, low, high. Singing higher frequencies is a lot to do with shifting formants, modifying vowels, amplifying different harmonics in the overtone stack, lightening the mass, dampening the larynx, coordinating all of the physiological and acoustic components that we've already talked about a million times in the phonation package, taking all of the components, acoustic and physiological, in the phonation package and treating them like a gyroscope. They're like a gyroscope that are constantly calibrating and tuning and balancing against each other as they move higher in frequency and forward in time. That's the genius little nugget that we're trying to explain and trying to point out with the XY intercept graph in your book. Now, back to the definitions of vocal registers. Chest voice, head voice makes students think about singing higher frequencies only in the y-axis of that graph, up, down, low, high, and that's a problem because that just means that they will try to hit high notes. They will try to belt and push high notes. That's the problem. The other problem with chest voice, head voice is it's not good science. It's just not good science, and we live in the 21st century. We have laryngoscopic instruments and lasers and all kinds of things that can see really what's happening inside the human voice when we sing high notes or when we're phonating through the passaggio, that it's no longer necessary that voice teachers and students of singing rely only on the popular ancient Italian notion of registers being chest voice and head voice. Okay? It's modern times. We know better. We need to be able to define registration in a different way other than using picture words. It's just not good science. Okay? So I'm going to explain the vibratory mechanism alternative, but before I get into that, I want to make one important point. Just because chest voice, head voice tends to make students think about singing higher frequencies as up, down, low, high, which is a problem, and it's not good science, that doesn't mean that we're not going to use it. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. It does have value. The value in chest voice, head voice is simply the fact that it is ubiquitous and it is easy. It's simple. It's easy to understand. The fact that it's not scientific is its benefit. So when we're having lessons together, I might say chest voice, head voice from time to time, just because I just want to make the point easier, okay? But in regards to credibility in the book and what I feel like you need to learn and know about, let's talk about a more scientific alternative definition for vocal registers. There was a team of French researchers that went out to solve this problem. They recognized the same problem that I just explained to you, and they sat down and they asked themselves, well, then what is it? What is happening in a physiological way, physiologics and acoustics? What is happening when singers feel the registration? Because the chest voice, head voice, this feeling of registering is not unusual. We all have the physical sensation of it. But what they did is they sat down to really kind of create a system that would define really what was happening. And what they decided to go with was they decided to define vocal registers by what is happening at the vibratory mechanism level. Okay? The vibratory mechanism. What's that? The vibratory mechanism is left vocal fold, right vocal fold together. The vocal folds coming together. How the vocal folds are vibrating or behaving at any given phonation, they determined would be the determining factor on what definition or what register it would become. The 4 vibratory mechanism registers are simply this. By the way, it sounds complicated. I know that. It sounds kind of complicated, all these big words, but it's really not. It's not very complicated at all. Here's all it is. Vibratory mechanism M0. Mechanism M0 is just simply cry-fry. Cry-fry. You've seen it before. It's part of our light mass onset idea. It's just this. Okay? Vibratory mechanism M0 is cry-fry. When we talk about the vibratory mechanism or the vocal folds inside of vocal fry or pulse register, sometimes it's referred to as pulse register, what we see is the time between each puff of air, between the time that my vocal folds open up, blow air, and come back together. That time is a long period of time. Now, I know it doesn't sound like a long period of time in the world of giants, but in the world of the very small, the duration of time that my vocal folds are open versus the duration of time that air is blowing through the glottis is relative to the other registers is a longer period of time. So long that there's no sense of pitch. Vocal fry or pulse register has no pitch. Not really, okay? That's really all there is to say about vibratory mechanism M0. Vibratory mechanism M1 is chest voice. Where I speech, where I belt, where I shout. That's vibratory mechanism M1. Okay? Vibratory mechanism M2 is, you guessed it, my head voice. Okay? Just that simple. Vibratory mechanism M3 is Flageolet or whistle voice. For men, that would start probably around E5 and women above that. So anywhere on the piano approximately above E5 on the piano for men and women, vibratory mechanism M3, Flageolet or whistle voice begins to occur. So that's basically all there is to it. So when we're in our lessons or you're reading the 4 pillars of singing, when you see vibratory mechanism M1, I'm just referring to chest voice. When you see vibratory mechanism M2, I'm just referring to head voice. Okay? That's really the main thing that you need to worry about. If you want to keep talking about chest voice, head voice, that's fine. But if you want to impress your friends at a cocktail party, or if you're writing on a forum, or you're doing a blog, or you're a teacher, or you're at the Voice Foundation, you're at an event where there's a lot of educated professionals and teachers around, you might want to consider talking about vocal registers in the context of vibratory mechanism, what is happening at the vocal fold level, and not picture words, chest voice, head voice. Okay? So that's the explanation of the vibratory mechanism, and now you are a smarter student of singing for it.